Hey y'all, I'm here with my client John, and we've had a great time working on his book together. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Why don't you start by telling them just a little bit about what your life used to be like, and then what your life is like now, and kind of how the book fits in.
Well, before, I was raised in a gray stone building in the Wicker Park area of Chicago back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. An area was flooded with gangs. So I was a smart kid. I was nerdy. I was bullied. And eventually, I just needed to fight. I got really deep involved with gangs. I terrorized my family with my lifestyle. I raped my father of his earnings, everything he worked for. And so I served my country, but everything positive I did was completely canceled out by by my criminal life. So I was a guy with a tie during the day, and I put the hood on at night, and eventually that led to a series of felonies. My father died, and I kind of lost my mind. Went into a deep depression. The only thing that kept me alive, eventually, I became my mother's caregiver, changing her diapers as her caregiver.
It's quite the story. Now let's fast forward into now. What does your life look like now?
Today, I am a husband, I'm a homeowner, I'm an author. I started a nonprofit organization called Lifeguard Community. I am a doctor of leadership and a pastor. And there was a process in between that, right? And that's where my book fits in. And it takes you through that process.
And you attribute some of that to your time writing the book and the aftermath of that. Tell me a little bit about how the book fits in with your journey.
I remember writing a book called The Neighborhood of Make Believe. And this guy, George the Greek, when I was in recovery, he's like, so what's your story so special about? Big deal. You were in a gang of a neighborhood. You want to tell that story, but what's so good about you? And I put that book down and I began to change. So that started that was my springboard to have a vision of legacy. And so eventually, 15 years later, I met with you and I started writing this book about my journey.
And now the book has been published and it's been out for a few months now.
Yeah.
What does this book mean to you in terms of legacy?
This book means that I am multiplying the miracle that happened to me. If I can take what happened to me and reduce recidivism, right, which is common for people that come out or in recovery from backsliding, then it'll work. This book means legacy. This is the pioneer of a new type of coaching. It's more than reentry. It's pointing people that seem hopeless into a mindset of legacy, just like Malcolm X. And so if I can have that mushroom effect, just like Alcoholics Anonymous, right? These people in restorative justice, they begin to multiply. This book could be that seed.
And in terms of impact, what have been the reactions so far of people reading the book?
Well, friends are the closest, hardest critics. They were like, and people that didn't know me in church, I can't put this book down. That is a very, very positive. Like, it's not, well, it's good. Oh my God, I didn't know you write like that. And this is really well put together. And so those are some of the initial reactions. It's still new. One big one is like two. One in Florida, a woman I grew up with, she's a correctional officer, and the other one's a pastor in Cook County. They both want to get my books into the prisons where they start, because that's when the seed has to plant.
Anything else you can tell me about opportunities arising from the book or impact?
Well, I would say there's one. I'm waiting for a book signing at my church, and maybe that can springboard into other churches. The other one is two people want to take my book into prison, right? So if I can get the book into prison, I'm thinking that I can also coach them within the book, and they get the live version of the book in their midst. And this is where the pilot, the pioneer of the program starts, and I'm hoping that multiplies.
What were the initial challenges that you faced before coming to me?
I had two mindsets, and I couldn't put it together. I wanted to tell my story so bad, but then I wanted to help others. And I found that I wanted to combine a manuscript and a coaching thing. Um, and then just formatting, right? Like, I had the story, I just didn't know how to put the ingredients in a way where it would flow well. And so I needed a coach.
What did you find most helpful about our work together?
You asked me questions that challenged my need to tell my story. I remember you said, do you want to tell your story or do you want to reach people and help them? That was one. And you kind of also share, led me to sharing my experience rather than tell a story. share an experience that'd be relatable to what I'm about to lead them into.
What did you find most helpful about the feedback?
Well, I was able to go back and make the necessary changes, right? The feedback helped me go back and correct instead of moving forward, right? So that's I was able to make a change from a person that was not biased, had a different perspective than my eyes.
How do you think the book might have turned out if we hadn't